50 countries have reached out and say, hey, we want to renegotiate our tariff situation as President Trump put in place reciprocal, mutual tariffs.
More than 50 countries have approached the administration about lowering their non-tariff trade barriers. So that's even just being able to do business in the country, lowering their tariffs or stopping currency manipulation. This is coming from the Treasury Secretary. And we also know that the European Union, late last night, the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said that they are seeking to avoid a back and forth trade war, that they are offering 0 for 0 tariffs on industrial goods.
This is the EU.
This is the European Union, which is actually...
As you said earlier to me in the meeting, I said, hey, so who is this saying this? Does this person have the influence, the control to actually say this? And the answer to that is yes.
Right. It is the president of the European Commission. So when you look at this, and you also know the history of President Trump trying to make a deal, get people to the negotiating table, that is working. Regardless of what anyone is telling you about how it's going to send America into a death spiral of economic doldrums.
Look, it wasn't a good weekend.
It was not. But I would at least say the bringing people to the table to negotiate is working.
This wasn't just a blanket, here are the tariffs, nothing's ever going to change. It was going to be something that brought people to the table, and 50 countries have already shown up.
I understand the goal here. And I think to some degree, that goal of getting people to the table to try to fix this problem is the positive best outcome. Now, when you have an entrenched economic policy like we've had, there is no way that you can change course without it being disruptive, a little scary. Right.
You said the world's on fire, which is the way I like it because I never get bored.
That's right. But what you also have to remember is that there are thousands of people right now that are making tons and tons of money off the stock market panic, that are actually fueling the drop in prices because of the way options market work. Very little risk to them to sell put options to make large profits off of this. So don't think that it's just, all these people are losing money. Most people that would be losing equity value are people that are not the big Wall Street types on a panic like this. I think that the panic will be short run in the market, because I think it will start to play out and it will level off.
What I like is data. And if we look at data from President Trump's first term, and there's a big study that just came out from a group of economists, mostly at MIT, that showed that a 20% tariff on China led to a 0.7% tax or price level increase over 4 years. I think that's pretty good. If we can take in 20% in tariffs, and it's a 0.7% increase. And Kristen, the little publicized story this week, everyone wants to look at the stock market going down. You know what else went down? Oil prices went down almost 15% in 2 days, which impacts working Americans much more than the stock market does. Interest rates hit their low for the year, so I'm expecting the mortgage applications to pick up.
And what he's pointing out there is that other numbers, such as the price for a barrel of oil, has gone down almost 15%, which will translate into lower gas prices, which not only affect you at the pump, but also the cost of your goods as they're being transported across the country, because that fuel cost is baked into the price. Also, the interest rates. Everyone in many areas across the country have been priced out of housing, not just because of the prices going up, but because of during the early 2020s, you were at 2%, 2.25%, 3% interest rate, up to 7.5% under the Biden administration. That prices you out of housing really fast.
Personally, my house has doubled in value over the last decade, but we cannot move.
Right.
We cannot afford to move because the interest rates are so high that our payment would be like, 10 times. I mean, I'm not even joking. Like 10 times what we're paying right now.
When things like this happen, it is going to cause disruption. It is going to cause some people to try and make it fail. That's why you will hear stories of people that made a vast fortune off of this dip in the market because they know how to play that game.
Steve, this is happening. The idea of it becoming a negotiation tactic is working. Sometimes we need to just take a breath, take a pause, and see how this all will play out. Of course, this is the Trump administration. Of course, it causes a little chaos, and it changes the way people are thinking about these situations. Because, again, they're thinking creatively, even if you disagree with them.
This is not something that President Trump hid, though. He had always run on the fact of trying to bring things like manufacturing back, trying to figure out the situation with the trade imbalances across the world with the United States, trying to really champion the rights of working class Americans and not just the Wall Street corporate interests that profit greatly when things are made very cheaply in China and then able to be sold here for profit. So I think that when you see any sort of disruptor, there is going to be disruptions. I think that is one of the things that needs to be taken into account. We don't know how this plays out, though. Yeah. We don't know because it is now President Trump's issues and things that he is fighting for are not just clashing with other nations, but also with big corporations that may not be on board with this type of deal.
Here's what I'll tell you. A statement a friend shared that was like, did you know if an iPhone was made in the United States, it would cost between $60,000 and $100,000? Now, number one, that's probably not true. Number two, if it is true, if that's true, then that is precisely the problem. Because for some reason, Democrats and the left is all about human rights, except when it comes to the price of their goods. You know, at that point, you're like, I can't live without my iPhone. So, of course, we have to have essentially, child labor happening or very underpaid for China. I'm not saying this directly to Apple. I'm just saying in general, we know. Okay, it's the quiet secret. We all know how things are done. We all know how it exists in these nations where you have a very underpaid, very highly worked society.
And when you look at that and you think it's been going on for so long in that way, no wonder there is such a discrepancy if you try to immediately bring it back. Yeah. One, I don't believe that figure that it would be that much, but
it may be $3,000 instead of $1,200.
But when you start to look at it and be like, are you really okay with that? Because that's what they've set up. Yeah. I don't think anyone, if you really knew the conditions, would be okay with that just to get something cheaper.
The news cycle is very short. So right now it's tariffs. And right now that's what people are going to share. And that's what your liberal friends are going to post. And that's what's going to happen. It's going to be the protests that happened over the weekend. Those are the things that are going to spur conversation. And then the ratings are going to dip. The shares are going to go lower. And they're going to come up with something else. And if the economy bounces back, guess what is not going to be reported very much on the mainstream media? The success of this campaign. Now, again, we will see. It's pending success. But we know 50 countries are at the table. We know some of them are some major players. And we know negotiations are pretty hot right now.